Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Identity is super powerful. It shapes every path, every choice that we make, and our mindset, let's get that right, does exactly the same thing. And today I am joined by a phenomenal woman investor, which is super cool because I always love to, get those ladies' voices out there because sometimes I like to stay in the quiet. So I don't want to keep talking. I want to introduce you to Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, I'm so grateful to have you on The Conscious Investor.
Thank you so much, Julie. This is a huge honor. I love your podcast. I listen to it regularly, and I love the deep dives that you make. It's super encouraging.
Well, I'm excited because you and we're already starting to go deep. You and I, we don't just stay super on the surface very long. We're like, wait, surface? We don't know what that is. Let's go dive and find the gems, which is something I really appreciate about our friendship. Yes. I'm so happy to share you have so much to share to the community, to investors, but this isn't just about investing in real estate. We're going to talk about that, but remember that as we talk about investing in real estate, that is also an approach to life and how to go about life. So if you're not investing in real estate, you can apply anything that we're talking about to the things that are taking place in your life. So I want to encourage you to, take this information and say, how am I investing in these different capacities in my life? So, I don't do big introductions, so we're just going to dive right in. And we're going to pick up right where our conversation left off, because we were talking about off-air identity. And you were talking about, wow, I had this huge shift. I was reluctant to be part of this real estate life, and I had this whole shift. So can you tell us a little bit about why were you reluctant and what shift took place?
Sure. Yeah. So about 3 years ago, well, almost 4 now, I kind of went in general through an identity crisis in my life. We had moved overseas. We're a military family. It was something like our 16th move. It was 4 moves in 5 years. It was crazy time for change in my life. I was pregnant with our 6th child.
Hold on. 4 moves in 5 years, and we're pregnant with child number 6 and making a move. Okay, let's just set the stage right there. That's a lot of littles.
So 30 weeks along, and anyways, we arrived in Belgium, amazing country, but a lot of change. Everyone spoke French. I know a little French, but I talk on a kindergarten level in French. So I could get by, but I couldn't have any depth in conversation. And being a deep person, and words of, affirmation and getting to know people being my love language, it was a really challenging time for me to feel more isolated. Also, we've been caring for my dad, and he's Canadian and could not immigrate to Belgium. We could not get him on as a military dependent. So we had to move him back to Canada quickly, about a month before we left for Belgium, after living with us for 6 years. Wow. So there were some major circumstantial things that happened. I was older, having a baby. It was a rough time, emotionally going through a dark winter there, realizing I needed UV light, that's something that I'm sensitive to, but didn't know at the time. So it was kind of a perfect storm happening in my life, but I really believe God allowed it because I don't think my foundation was really strong as to my identity, who I am. And I realized that because as I worked through healing from it, I thought, I'm not going to stay in this place. I'm not going to stay in a pit. I'm not going to get super depressed. I was super determined to get out of it. Yet at the same time, I was caught in it. I didn't want to be there. I didn't even believe that I could ever be there, but I was there. And so I had to come to terms with that first and accept, my struggles. It's okay. Don't get down on myself. People go through these things, right? But it forced me to think about how I'm thinking, literally. So every, day I was kind of trying to, and I also went through some counseling online, kind of screen my thoughts. What are my thought processes? What am I thinking about my life, my circumstances? Where's my hope, right? And I realized that my mind was really in the tank most of the time. I mean, I was so hard on myself. I've always been a high achiever, always been, basing my identity and my life on my performance. I did well in school. I ran competitively nationally in Canada for track and cross country. I looked for success, for winning races and scoring high marks and being popular as, success. And I had moved away from that as I got older, but I hadn't fully been healed and delivered of that. So that's what happened to me, identity wise. Now, springing into real estate, at the same time, my husband is, I'm feeling kind of down, but he's doing a lot of trips and he's working for NATO. But he's showing me, these books like How to Be a Millionaire, Apartment Syndication. And I'm thinking, I can hardly get my thinking on track, right? Let's just throw in another, job on top of the kids, the move, the overseas assignment, and it overwhelmed me. So that was one thing. I felt like I couldn't take on another thought, another thing that we had to do. The second thing was I didn't understand the why or the purpose of it. So I thought, okay, I don't want to be, super rich. I guess maybe I'm odd, but I really did not have that internal desire. I mean, sure, I like my comforts. He's an officer in the military, or was. Great job, nice home, but I didn't ever want more. Like I didn't think, okay, I need this certain car or this certain outfit, or that wasn't anything that really motivated me. And so when he would talk about money, I was like, I was not even paying attention because I thought, I don't know why. And I feel overwhelmed anyways. But these conversations continued on, and he continued to have the books, but he was very gentle with me. So he was never pushy or anything like that. But I came to a point, we moved back to Illinois after 2 years in Belgium. And we were only going to be in Illinois for 11 months in our little Air Force house on our blow up beds for 6 weeks because our stuff got stuck in customs. But it was a humbling time because, again, we were stripped of things. We moved back to Illinois. We have literally, a fold out table for a kitchen table and blow up beds, honestly, for 6 to 8 weeks. I don't even know. I just know I was crawling out of my bed by the end of the time, right? And grabbing the dresser to get up, or grabbing the wall. But anyways, that being said, that time frame, I was able to kind of come out of that cultural shock of being overseas and not being able to connect with people with the language barrier, come back and feel like, okay, we're living on base. I'm back to some comforts. I'm back to some people I can talk to, and have a deeper conversation with. And so that kind of helps me to settle down a little bit. I'd come off of a hard situation with my daughter when she was born. That's another story, but I was able to settle down a little bit and start to really think about what he was saying. Now, I would have to say there was kind of a come to Jesus moment, or like a revelation moment for me, where I had my quiet time in the morning, and I was journaling, and I was, reading my Bible, and I was really reflecting on where our life was heading. And my husband had said to me recently, well, I want to go to this real estate conference in Texas. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, why? Sure, go for it. Go for it. I know this has been a passion of yours. I felt a little bit like, resentful in my spirit, kind of like he's going to go away on this weekend trip without me. I'll have all the kids again. And I won't be a part of this. But I thought, okay, but this is what he's always wanted to do. Well, then eventually I realized that I'm not really supporting him. So in order to support him, I would try to maybe go with him. So I thought, well, but this won't happen. We have no one to watch the kids. Well, I brought it up to him. And then my mother-in-law said, no, we'll come, we'll fly out, watch the kids. So the end of the story is we went to the conference with him, and my eyes were totally opened. There were like 1,000 people in the room. And I heard, the 5 ways to cash flow with real estate. But again, that wasn't my drive, money, but I was open to a different way and a different way of thinking. And then the light bulb just kind of came on with me. My husband turned to me and said, Anne Marie, can you see that money is a tool? And I was like, money is a tool. And I really thought about that. And he said, money is a tool, and it is a way that we can create a legacy. And remember the dream that we had when we first got married of having land, having cabins, having helping people get restored and healed and well in their lives, troubled youth or veterans with PTSD. We've always talked about that, but we kind of put that dream on a shelf through our busy are moving and all the kids. But he said, how will we do that if we don't have the money? You know, who's going to fund it? Are we just going to go off donations? Or are we going to start a business that we strategize to make this dream come true? And that hit me right in my heart. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt by the end of that weekend, this was a calling on our lives. I had been resisting it. It's an amazing opportunity to touch people's lives. It's an amazing opportunity to meet people. And I was the one, when they were asking for who wants to sign up for the $30,000 coaching program, my hand's shooting up in the air and he's going, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. I just was, when I'm in, I'm all in, right? So
I am, and like, whew, I'm all teary-eyed because you went into more of your dream as to, you know, building a retreat center, you know, at the end there. And off air, you and I we just barely touched on it. I'm like, okay, hold on, wait a second. And I read the goals, my 10-year out goal. And that just stems from something my husband and I have spoken about, which is, it's just wild how aligned that is. And, you know, who knows what God does through that. If it's like, wow, our families work together, or if we just support each other in our own, you know, retreat centers that we create in different spots and,
right.
And collaborate in that capacity. But that concept is so rare. And as you know, there's so much I want to say about everything else that you just said, but I'm like, oh, I just have to go here for a second and let it out and to say, it's incredible. And as I started thinking that goal came about, it's like, or that vision was already cast. It's already been there. It's been there for a long time.
Yes.
But when I was sitting down and looking at the next 3 years, the next 5 years, and then I'd never projected out 10 years and looking at, well, how old am I going to be in 10 years? And what do I want those years to look like? Right. So, I mean, in 10 years, I'm going to be in my mid 50s. Mm-hmm. And that's a totally different stage of life. You're now preparing for this different stage. And I could see, you know, well, the kids will be gone in 10 years. They'll be living their lives. And now it would be our opportunity to invest and pour into other people in this other capacity that would be phenomenal. So.
Yes. Because when you move seasons, right, there a lot of times I think folks, when they're either empty nesters or they're, you know, and their kids leave for college, there can be that sense of, what do we do now? We've poured our lives into our children. What's the next season? And what is the vision for our family? Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, that season is like, wow, this is what I could see growing old and pouring the rest of my life into. Plenty of space for the kids to come back with grandkids. They can all come back. They can stay. There are plenty of cabins and yurts and other, they could just pitch a tent if they want. But, you know, it's such an exciting thing. Okay. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about everything that you are doing. You know that already. But just that concept, that shift that you made and that heart movement that God did in you to say, it's not about the money. And so money mindset is such a powerful, it's something that I think people wrestle with. They don't even realize that they're wrestling with it. So like you and I, we don't value money as like, it's all material stuff. It's going to burn away anyway. Who cares? Yeah. but then when you start realizing, as your husband said, it's a tool. Now it's, oh,
yes.
It's not about being rich or wealthy. And maybe I do have significant means, but I have more to give away. I have more to serve and help and support.
Yes, to impact lives and change lives, because that will be what will bring you the total satisfaction that you're looking for. Because I think with money, there's never a final end goal. Well, we could be financially free when we get the 3 vacations a year, or we financially free when I, you know, I'm not working my W-2, or financially free when we have the large house we wanted by the water. You know, I don't know what is it, right? But I think then you kind of want the next notch. I know I do. I get something and I'm like, oh, but then there's that. And then there's that upgrade, you know, but it never really, when we get to that upgrade, it doesn't fully satisfy.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's why it's so important to know, what is the life mission work that I want to do? What is it I want to establish and leave behind for posterity? What's larger than me? Because that's far larger than money, for sure.
Yeah.
So in a way, you guys are doing this. You're already starting in a really small capacity at this point, because you have these super cool crash pads, which I just love the name Crashpads because you have everybody doing their short-term rentals, and then you have you guys doing, we've got Crashpads. So yeah, please take a moment and you know, maybe this is the beginning, because I've never heard, prior to, you know, like us getting to know each other, I had never heard about Crashpads. So are you guys, is this your thing? Did you invent the crash pad? Kind of like someone labeled house hacking or Burr. Did you label this crash pads?
No, actually, we can't take credit for the Crashpad name.
Okay.
It's been out there,
Okay.
but it's kind of probably not that well known because it's in the pilot world,
Okay.
especially in the airlines, commercial airlines, as well as the carriers. It's a term that really encompasses, even for flight attendants, a place that they can, when they're commuting, stay in as opposed to a hotel. Kind of like a hostel situation or a dormitory.
Mm-hmm.
That it's, some places are more private room focused, some are more like single beds per room, and some are bunk bed oriented. In the UPS FedEx crash pad world that Jeremy's flying for UPS, it's more of a bunk bed, you know, dorm situation is the norm there.
So, okay. So tell us how you got involved with this. I happen to love part of your story on on this crash pad setup, but you know, now you have these crash pads taking, and they're growing in Alaska, but how Alaska? Why crash pads? Like, listeners have never heard this story, and crash pads is likely a very new concept to many.
Sure. So Jeremy just retired this summer from the Air Force after almost 25 years of service. So I'm super proud of him. I've been with him for 21 years. And he felt called to apply to UPS and FedEx. He really put his effort into UPS. His father was a truck driver for UPS for 40 years. And so he felt like, you know, it's a company he also believes in. So long story short, he went through a pretty rigorous study process and application process. It was almost a year lead up to the actual getting an interview, with multiple interviews and psychological testing. He made it through 7,000. Yeah.
Wait, he's retired from the Air Force. That's like the elite of elite. And he still had to go through this rigorous of a process. I had no idea.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, he was treated not any differently for being Air Force. I'm sure they looked at his flight hours and were, you know, happy with that, but he still has to go through the vetting process that everyone does. So 7,000 people applied and about 250 got hired this past year. And so
wow.
It was a real honor to get to that point and be hired. And then the training process was 4 months of moving around, not really being home, flying from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to different, you know, places in the world. He's flying the 747, which is a cargo plane. So the reason for Anchorage, Alaska is our two cargo hubs, world hubs, are Louisville, Kentucky, and Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage is strategically positioned, right, as we know, to fly to Asia, to fly to Australia, New Zealand, India, and Europe. And so he does shuttles from there. And ultimately, that's called your domicile. So wherever you're flying out of is your domicile. So UPS will pay for you to return to your domicile, you know, flying wise and whatnot. But if you're commuting, say you live in Spokane, Washington, or where we are near Buffalo, New York, you have to jump seat your way, you know, get on other planes to get your way back home. It'll take you a day or two. And then when you're returning for work again out of Anchorage, you're going to have to be there a day ahead, because you can't say, well, my flight was canceled, you know, I couldn't make it to fly, you know, that will lose your job in the first year, especially. So he's based out of Anchorage. And so while he's there, there are also time periods where he's on call. So he's getting paid, but he's sitting waiting for a phone call to fill in another pilot that can't work. And at that time, he would have to sit at the crash pad. He couldn't sit here in where we live. So it gets expensive at the hotel, right? If you're waiting for 5 or 6 days to fly, there was one person that waited 8 days in the crash pad. That would have been 8 nights of a hotel room that UPS is not paying for. They're assuming that you're living in the domicile, but anything where you're having to wait to fly or wait to work, that will be on your time and your money. So hotel rooms aren't too bad in Anchorage in the winter, but by May, getting into tourist season, you'll pay $200 to $300 a night probably for a hotel. and it will add up, right? So the
Right.
crash pad philosophy is that you're paying a set fee for the month on a 30-day lease, but usually they're there much longer than 30 days. But they can, the reason they're on a shorter lease is that sometimes their domicile will change. Sometimes something changes in their scheduling, right? But typically they'll pay 300 to 350 in that area, sometimes upwards of 400. Again, depending on, are they a new pilot that's on a very low pay scale, or are they a second and third year pilot that's on a better pay scale? So that's how we're doing that. And there's 3 bedrooms, there's 4 beds per room, 2 bunk beds per room in this situation. So we have 12 in the crash pad.
Is that typical for the crash pad to essentially be on a sliding scale? Or is that unique to how you're choosing to manage it?
I think it's slightly unique. I think that is out there. We're brand new, so we want to also, show our reputation. And we've always had the philosophy of, especially even with the military, like when we sold our family home, we sold it to a military couple. We gave them a slight discount, a military discount, and we feel the same way when someone's on a $40,000-$50,000 pay scale, their first year of UPS, that's way different from someone who's on their second and third year pay. So
big time. That's amazing. And it's really interesting how they can, just, rent the space for the month and, $300-$400 versus how much is that going to be in hotel expenses? And then the comfort of, I'm sure there's community space with a couch and TV that's, you can actually just sit and chill out and not feel like you're just, crammed in a hotel room.
Yes. So yeah, we have, obviously everything you would have in a home, the laundry, the kitchen, the meals, they add up as well. They get tired of traveling. And because remember, when they're coming off their international flying, they've been in different restaurants and hotels, and they're ready to have their own food and have a closet where their extra uniforms are hanging and things like that. But also there's a sense of community. The guys support each other. They share rides. They encourage one another when they're away from home. So that's great.
That's amazing. It reminds me in a sense, like the firehouse, or, where first responders often say, paramedics are very similar, if they're on the ambulance side of things. So that's amazing. And you guys are picking up more of those. I'm thinking that you just picked up another one.
We did.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. We're about to close. Actually, the mobile notary should drive up here any day and I will sign for the second one. And yes, this one's a 4-bedroom. So it will have more pilots. It's actually backed by demand because they were actually really, they're texting, calling us, asking, please, can you get another one? So there's a wait list that's practically full. We haven't advertised it yet.
No advertising. That's amazing.
Yeah, we did a little bit initially one time on a UPS and FedEx blog, but yeah, they're telling each other, this is a great place, this is, good situation, good owner. So that really helps. Yeah.
That's really cool. Are you going to end up opening some, you think, in Louisville as well? Just
that's a great
it's a
question.
similar hub?
That's a great question. It's, I think, a little bit more maybe saturated with the concept of it, but we haven't done a deep dive into looking at that. We've kind of stayed focused where we are in Anchorage because we can have a little bit more of a boots on the ground look at what's going on there as we establish it. We're thinking now that the thing is this is really a pilot to pilot thing. Pilots generally going to trust another pilot in the cargo world. So it's not like I could just launch this off. Maybe I could because I'm his spouse, but anyone outside of that internal circle would have difficulty because, they're not going to understand the isms as much, with the pilots and have that, okay, I'm a retired Air Force, I'm another cargo guy, and they can talk the language with each other. But now we're looking at, there's going to be a total of 30 pilots in our 2 crash pads. It's becoming, there's little questions, there's signing of leases, there's passing documents back and forth. We need to have VAs in place. So that's what we're moving towards this year.
Okay. So those are just creating some good systems and processes to keep it streamlined.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're doing month-to-month leases with 30 people, That
Yes.
is a lot of paperwork and a lot of upkeep for sure.
Yes. And we want to be able to grow. I mean, we still have a demand. We still haven't, fully put it out there. And we feel like this can grow and we can have a community and we can have, an encouraging, crash pad family in Anchorage. And so we want to do this. We want this to be a great place for these pilots to feel encouraged.
That's just, I love it. I love the heart behind it. I love how you guys are managing, and operating and everything. Now you guys have chosen to purchase these in a different way. Some people choose outright purchases, some people syndicate, but you guys have chosen to go around the joint venture route in these, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
the first one we actually purchased as a second residence because
Okay.
Jeremy is actually there. He can show that he's there
Mhm.
51% of the time. He
Mhm.
flies out of there. That's his domicile. So we were able to get the 10%, residential second residence loan.
Mhm.
The second one here, we're actually on a joint venture partnership with another couple, and he flies for Delta Airlines, but he's also got a military history of working with Jeremy. So that's our first crash pad joint venture where we
Okay.
manage and he puts the money down.
Okay. And is there what's the philosophy you're thinking? I know that you guys want to continue to grow in that joint venture process with others. So why do you gravitate more towards that model?
Well, I think the syndication can be expensive, especially on, some of the smaller units that we own. Like we have a 12 unit and a 5 unit, and we've felt like I guess we're kind of like tortoises. We kind of just take that next step, and then that next step. My husband's fairly conservative. I'm somewhat conservative, but I'm probably a little bit more risky than he is. So I push him and he holds me back. So it's a good, it's a good partnership. But yes, we will eventually syndicate. We are not close to that whatsoever. And it may be sooner than later, but we felt like we've met some couples that are really strong, financially, also in the vision. It's not everyone that wants to invest in a crash pad in Anchorage, right?
Right.
It's a different mindset that understand that world, understand our background, know us long term. With all the moving that we do, I mean, it's getting better because so many things are virtual now. But if you think about it, through the last 21 years, it's hard to really establish those trusting relationships when you're constantly picking up and moving and
Mhm.
going. And
Yep.
so we have a handful of folks that have known us through the years that are interested in real estate, but are scared to make the full jump into real estate
Right.
investing, but have trusted us as private lenders. And now are kind of easing into, let's be a partner. Let's learn about this. So I think there's that side of it, the mentoring, encouraging side of our friends that we really ultimately want to see them, succeed. We want to see them have tax savings, a Delta airline pilot. You want to see them not pay that much in taxes, right? There's a way, but it's kind of that gradual modeling and teaching and bringing them into the model. That is part of it. And I think it's just our nature of, we take having other investors' money very seriously, very seriously. And so, we've been doing this for 3 years, but that's not a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and are you planning on holding on to those for how long would you hold on to those?
That's a great question. That I'm not
Like,
answer to. I think a while. I think at least 8 to 10 years. And then I guess it would be now a question of what is the maintenance of the home? Is the home starting to require more updates and maintenance than we want to do? We would have to look at that. It's a great cash flow model. It's really an excellent cash flow model. It's not a great model where you can force appreciate, right? There's only so much you can do with the home unless you're getting a good deal and you're going to flip that home and you're going to do a lot of renovations to it.
right.
You could combine that in it eventually and try to do that if the market goes up there. But I think for the most part, it's a buy and hold, and it's just a steady cash flow strategy. And I think he has 18 years to work for UPS. And if I know my husband, he's steady, he's stable.
He's going to work 20.
Probably do it. We'll be anchored for 18 years. Owning Crashpads.
Right. Oh, that's incredible. So what are you looking for? How are you, you kind of touched on how you found the people that you've joint ventured with now, but somebody's listening and they're like, golly, this is so amazing. I want to participate. Like, do you have some type of model, some type of way to someone to vet people as potential joint venture partners?
We've basically just been networking through Zoom calls, with people and just kind of taking note of a database where I take note of what people are actually interested in. Do they have any interest in that model? Do they have any interest in Anchorage? We're definitely open to other markets. So we would, if we have a great partnership where the goals align, we're willing to go into where a market is growing into other areas of the US. So we're not limiting ourselves to Anchorage. That's simply the Crashpad model. But we've even thought like, let's partner with others and take this out to bigger cities like Chicago, Denver. But our capacity right now is to understand the model first, right? And get our systems in place so that we can grow and we're not overwhelmed and doing a sloppy job, right?
Right.
But I think to meet people, pretty much we've been doing the Zoom calls and just taking note of people that are interested. I think one other step we're going to take is educating pilots, within the world as well. Because some of them have said, well, I would like to partner on something like this. And they're very like-minded and they're very much in a high tax bracket, the cargo pilots after the second year. So, how can we kind of build that education platform as well as eventually maybe those are some partners as well.
That's really interesting. As you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about the tax implications. And, if one of those pilots happens to have, a partner that stays at home and and it's a joint venture and they're helping actively manage it, that's an incredible opportunity to have a nice tax write-off.
Yes, because
I am not a CPA. I'm not giving tax advice.
And I'm not either, but I will say that he's flown with some pilots that are like, well, my wife has a great job. She makes 30,000, 40,000 a year. And Jeremy's like, okay, what do you pay in taxes? And they're like 230,000 a year. And he's like, your wife has a $40,000 job. Right. She could be a real estate professional. And you could save 230. She could make 230,000 for you as a real estate professional, probably doing very little.
Yes.
Less than she does for her full-time job.
Yes.
So but a lot of people are skeptical when you don't have that relationship yet with them. You don't have that trust built up. So that will take some time to build up. He's a new pilot. He's a new first officer. He's not a captain yet, to build those relationships and that trust.
Yeah. That is phenomenal. I love it. I don't want to wrap this episode up because I love talking with you. And this is such a unique investment, niche. And I just love your mindset and how you pivoted from being, the reluctant wife into being the more risk taker wife. And, really linking arms with your husband, to do something that is so much larger than the two of you combined. So amazing.
Yeah. And I will say, like, if yourself or your spouse, if you're listening, you're probably on board with real estate investing, but if your spouse is struggling, I think a lot of times it's finding that common ground of what gifts and talents does your spouse have that can add to make a partnership. Maybe they aren't, the best underwriter, but they're great with meeting people and marketing and, getting out there, or maybe, they can, set up a short-term rental, or, they're more artistic and creative. What is it that could bring a relationship or a partnership together and really, work off of each other's gifts, just like you would in a joint venture? I think I just want to share that because in our marriage, it's taken us to another level of closeness and another level of unity, in order to have that together, that goal. So.
I agree. That's happened, with the business ventures that my husband and I go, do together. So it's create some interesting, growth opportunities along the way.
It's not all roses. I agree. I mean, there's going to be conflict because now you're talking business and you have a close relationship too. But I think at the end of the day, you are pressed to really evaluate your life, really look at where you're heading and what is the goal and what is the legacy you want to leave as a family.
Yeah, that's amazing. Anne Marie, we have to wrap up. What is the best place for people to connect up with you?
So I'm on the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Anne Marie Sheldon. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Private message me on any of those, friend, connect. I love that. I think that's a place that I definitely love to connect. We also have a website. It's www.sparrowequitymanagement.com. And that's another place too you can connect.
Love it. Love it. Sparrow. I have a thing for birds.
Well, sparrow, actually, I know we don't have a lot of time, but that's a Latin word for I hope. It's spelled S-P-E-R-O.
Oh, that's good to know. Take note of that, people. SPERO.com.
Yes.
No, Sparrow. There's another word after it. Sorry.
Equity.
Sparrow Equity
Management. Okay. Yes. It's kind of a mouthful.
Oh, totally fine. Goodness. All right, Anne Marie, thank you again for coming on The Conscious Investor. And, to all these awesome listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode. And until next time, live big, love bigger. Overwhelmed by apartment syndication, but want to learn more? Let me help you press the easy button. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download Syndication Made Simple. I explain simply how the process works, who's involved, and how you can get started today. You're smart, and with this simple guide, you'll be able to understand the process. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download Syndication Made Simple.